Hello and welcome to the Community Garden here on WMUC Digital College Park Radio. Once again, on this fine Tuesday night, we are joined by the Music Experimentation Club, and I am joined here with my good friend Dylan. Dylan, how are you?
Hey, man, I'm doing well, man. How about you?
I am perfect, man. I absolutely enjoyed the weather today.
Ooh, yes.
Just waking up to a nice, cool morning, man, it was absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, and let's look forward to another cool day tomorrow, for sure.
Yeah, and hopefully many to come.
Yeah, definitely.
Hopefully. Well, man, we are actually joined with a couple of friends here in the studio, man.
My friends.
We've got Collin Danz on tonight as our conversational guest, and we have a surprising and special guest, Bryce Watson from Bruce Take Nap. Bryce, how are you?
I'm doing quite well. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, Bryce, this actually is not your first time here in the Community Garden studio.
No. Last time I was in here was with Elijah covering Sharon Jones. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that was a great
show.
episode.
That was a great episode.
Well, man, we brought you in because Dylan and I are having Prince on as our musical guest tonight.
Oh, yes.
And it seems like we can't tell a single person that we're having Prince on without them having some sort of relation or connection to Prince or his music, man. He's truly a impactful artist.
Legendary. He's so sick. Like, Prince was and still is like one of the most influential artists for me ever. You know, he did it all. He played so many like 27 instruments or something. He innovated like all these different genres. Like, he did pop stuff, disco, R&B, all this crazy different stuff. He released 39 studio albums. I was trying to find that the other day. Thank you, Matt, for that info.
This 39 records is a record of our guest, our musical guest on the Community Garden.
It's a record number of records.
Yeah, our first episode was Stevie Wonder. He produced 26 studio albums.
Wow.
And then most recently, the record was broken by
Al Green.
With 29 studio albums?
Yeah, and then Prince came and blew it away, man. Blew it away, an incredible amount of albums.
That's crazy.
10 whole albums ahead. But yeah, 39 studio albums. That's crazy. He also like wrote songs that everyone else made super famous. He wrote Nothing Compares to You. Sinead O'Connor made that a hit. Mm-hmm. Classic. What else did he write? He wrote I Feel For You. Shaka Khan made that a hit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We actually just had Shaka Khan on the Community Garden, man, about 2 weeks ago or so with Emily Fox.
There you go.
Yeah, that's what's up. So, hey, let's jump into our first Prince track.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're going to go and listen to a Prince track. This one's called I'm Yours off of his 1978 album, For You. Hope you guys enjoyed this track.
back to the Community Garden, everyone. That track was I'm Yours by Prince off of his 1978 album For You. Yeah, tonight we're joined in the studio by our good friend Collin Danz. Collin, how you doing? Oh, wait, hold on. Collin, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How about you guys?
Doing well.
I am great, man. Collin, thanks for coming in and joining us in the studio, man. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be on the Community Garden.
Heck yeah. Well, something we do here on the Community Garden is hit our guests with a little bit of their own personal self.
Oh, yeah? Hit me with it. Tell me what I'm about.
Yeah, let me tell you a little something about you, Collin, all right?
Yeah.
Well, first and foremost, you're a student here at the University of Maryland studying the English language and getting a minor in philosophy, man. Very exciting. You've also had a number of professional involvements, including interns at many of offices, including the Maryland Office of the Public Defender, the Baltimore County State's Attorney Office, and now you are an intern there at the American Bar Association here in D.C. on the Commission on Domestic and Sexual Violence, man.
Yeah.
Very impressive, and yeah, man, it's just intriguing, considering I don't know what any of those offices do.
What they pertain to?
Do
Yeah.
specifically.
Yeah,
Maybe
yeah,
you could help me fill me in on maybe just one of them.
On one of them? I'll go with the one that I'm currently working on.
Mhm.
Sure.
So the American Bar Association is incredibly large, has a multitude of different divisions within. The one I'm in is a 7-person commission dedicated to domestic and sexual violence. Oh, sorry. I got to move a little closer. Essentially what they do is provide training for lawyers who are in defense and judges and prosecutors on how to deal with cases that involve domestic and sexual violence. Additionally, they actually push policy as well. Currently, they're working to support the reauthorization of VAWA, which is the Violence Against Women's Act. It was reauthorized by Congress and is now going to Senate. And so there should be a decision on that soon, but that's very important. Additionally, want to plug this, it is October, and October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So please, stay informed, get involved.
What are some ways that students here at University of Maryland can, well, if they're not informed, perhaps first get informed?
To get informed, there's a lot of online writing about it. There are specific things that we focus on and specific myths that we focus on that we want people to investigate a little bit more. And there's very basic research on it. It's a very easy topic to get involved with. There is a lot of progressive movements going on within the field right now. And yeah, I mean, honestly, the best way to start your involvement is with a quick Google search on progressive movements.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And there are a few groups here on campus that are working towards getting people educated. One in particular that I know is Care to Stop Violence, which is CARE is a acronym that stands for Campus Advocates Respond and Educate to Stop Violence. They have a lot of online literature that it's very accessible to students through the UMD website. And additionally, the Health Center has good resources as well.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah, man, it really interests me, well, being the community garden, and especially this season we've talked a lot about, everybody's role in the community. I'm pretty curious, Collin, what has called you towards the law and order side of it, the protection side of community, having this more meta sense of my community and maintaining these rules that are in place for a stable and safe community.
Wow, that's a dense question.
Yeah,
but I appreciate it.
You got it.
So I guess I can start just from general experiences from my first 2 work experiences. Working in the public defender's office, it's pro bono work provided for people who have been accused of crimes and are potentially going to be convicted. And that one was a little more in depth than the state's attorney's office that I was working with. I was actually, meeting with different clients, discussing different cases, witnessing court cases. And something that I really just started to realize at that it was the Carroll County Public Defender's Office, and just a lot of public defense offices are understaffed. There's a lot of cases coming in. A lot of people, we're afforded a right to a lawyer. That doesn't often. Privatized lawyers are just very, very expensive. That's just how it works. So public defenders are given just an insane amount of cases, and they're typically overworked. And a lot of that just, I guess the issue that I mainly focused was the fact that I didn't see an availability to put 100% effort into every case. And that's not the fault of the public defender themselves. That's the fault of the system in place. And I guess from that, I started to just recognize how that also affects the people who have been, affected by crime or accused of crime. They often just take, there's suggested sentencing or mandatory sentencing as well for certain crimes. And after a while, the state has a recommendation to the judge, and for most cases, recommendation to the judge of how long the sentence should be. Public defender not really having the resources to be able to sit through and sift through every case is just like, I think we should take the recommendation. Often leads to more people in prison. And that was kind of where I saw I needed to involve myself in society more. I was just recognizing, like, I don't really know how else to describe it other than just like
a lot of people are going to prison for a long time for not
it's
awful things.
It's an abuse of a flawed system, and people don't really seem to care about it. Well, that's not true. I'm not going to say that, but there's a lack of emphasis on it that I think a lot of more people need to involve in their lives.
Yeah, very important.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah,
I think that law and order system and the step that involves somebody going to prison is pretty serious and should be taken not lightly. Like you said, if you have so many of these cases, flying over your desk, you're gonna want to, try to just shovel through them.
Right.
Yeah, it interests me the role of prison in our community. What?
Oh man, don't even.
This is a lot. This is a huge conversation.
Yeah. Well, Dylan, how do you start?
Well, I guess I'm not the person.
Can I pitch a question?
Yeah, please.
So I want to pitch the question of where do you see, in my opinion, the major flaw in American prisons is that they are punishment-based rather than rehabilitation-based.
This is true.
And I guess I feel like that's a good jumping off point to talk about.
Yeah, and maybe we can bring that even closer to our own communities of like, how do we approach dissenting opinions and dissenters in society?
Yeah.
Do we approach it with a punishment mindset and paradigm, or rehabilitation based? And I definitely am on the side of rehabilitation and
as you should be, as I think we all should be.
Yeah, I would agree. The rehabilitation is totally positive.
And education. And that's really what it's all about.
Well, I was going to ask what, these are the two ways for prisons to accomplish their goals, but what is the goal of a prison?
That's a good question.
It's to,
go ahead.
It's essentially to have a proper response to an incident against society. And the way that America kind of views it right now is that it should be punishment, which, within that, there's really a lot.
I guess the reason I ask is because is this proper response? Who wants this proper response? Is it the public, the society that wants this safety, this feeling of safety that if someone does something bad, something will happen in turn. You can't just go around doing, what you please.
Yes. I just think that we should be careful because, I can't speak for everyone's experience, but I'm fairly distanced from the prison system in my own experience, and I don't know. I just don't feel comfortable talking about it, really.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Perfectly fine, man. Let's move on to a different subject.
Because I just don't think that I have anything to add to the conversation that is informed.
And it's opening a can of worms, too. You're going to get down the rabbit hole when you start such a large conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. But also interesting because I feel like I should be more informed about this.
Yeah.
And I feel like everyone should have a basic knowledge of how the system works and their opinions on how they think it should work.
Yeah.
Well, jumping away from that specific example, but perhaps staying with the theme, what makes people feel safe in a community?
Well, in one of my classes I took, which was an urban development class, sustainable city development type class, we talked about the difference between perceived safety and actual safety, and it if you are safe but you don't feel safe, then you're pretty much not safe, because you don't have the peace of mind of feeling safe. And if you obviously in the other direction, if you perceive to be safe but you're actually not safe, then you're actually not safe. So both are important, and I think that this is an important thing in society, is one, to feel safe, which takes many different forms, and there's a lot of systems that should be in place to make people feel safe. And then additionally, you should be actually safe, and obviously there are so many systems that should be in place to make the society safe.
Mm-hmm.
This is broad.
Yeah, no, it's perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, I actually just saw in the Diamondback an article about the police auxiliary here at Maryland.
Yeah.
Do you think that
The students in yellow.
Yeah, the students in yellow, exactly. Dylan, you put it just as the title did, the students in yellow. What's it like to be police auxiliary at UMD?
Yeah.
I am curious if you guys see the police auxiliary as this like beacon of safety here on campus.
I think it's really dependent on who you are. Like, there are a lot of people who would see that and they would feel, intimidated by the fact that they're constantly being monitored. But there are also people whose perception of safety directly correlates to having police presence. So even if it is an auxiliary police, it's someone in uniform who they understand is there to maintain safety. So, yeah.
Yeah, I don't find myself interacting too much with the police auxiliary, but I think I honestly don't even know what their real role is other than monitoring.
It's a patrol-based system. Essentially, they're just to patrol the university, and I believe they can get called into situations, but it would be minor, and they would just call upon actual police presence because they can't actually really. I don't know. I'm not going to say that because I don't know how far they can actually go. So,
but they are students.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is interesting.
Yeah, a peer supervising a peer. Well, I mean, that happens at my job at the Rockwell. Definitely all peers there, student employees, but there is a hierarchy involved where, supervisors have supervision over their peers. And I think we see that there with the police auxiliary as well.
Yeah,
it's a pretty interesting way that you were saying or referencing to, Dylan, way for our society to make our community feel safe and secure. Pretty interesting.
Yeah. What are ways in which you all feel safe in your communities and in where you live and in society in general?
Collin, anything coming to mind?
Honestly, for me, usually it is, a lack of, I don't know. I was going to say a lack of police presence, but I actually don't think that's correct. I mean, I was thinking along the vein of, like, I don't know, my instant thought when I see the police is that there's something that's happened, there's something that's being instigated, there is something wrong.
Yeah.
So if they're not there, then there's supposedly nothing wrong, right?
I would say that it's definitely I would see it as a good signal of a safe community, but I think that, like we were talking about, this law and in turn enforcement of that law is an important part of having a safe community.
Yeah.
And how a society or a community goes about that, I think, is super important.
Yeah, because certainly there are ways in which the police can be used for good, and there are certainly ways in which the police can be used to, one, create perceived unsafety, or the opposite of safety, and also, unfortunately, to make society actually not safe.
How do you mean?
I mean, police maybe using their power or using anything to literally make the community not safe by either from assault or from harassment or anything. And it's present. It's very present.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I want to pose a question to you guys, and maybe Collin, you first.
Okay.
What do you find yourself doing to make others within your community feel safe? And maybe this question
is
is
a great question.
more like of a
Yeah.
closer circle question.
So, when I think of safety, I think of the entire person. I don't, it's not like an impending danger of physical threat, anything like that. But I think just actually having, like, I hate to say it like this, but it's a conversation. It's something that involves yourself becoming involved with the other person, because if there's somebody who is going through a tough time, even if you reach out, there's a potential for them to reach back out to you. And if they don't, that is their choice. If that's how they feel more safe, rather like keeping to themselves, then that's more to them.
Mm-hmm.
But I think as an individual, you just need to be able to understand when to give people space, when to ask people questions, and pretty much anything like that.
Dylan, do you see your goals in keeping or making people feel safe kind of align with that?
Definitely. My first thought was safety in relation to health. And like Collin said, like health as a holistic thing that everyone should have. And my initial thought was mental health.
Yeah.
And if I can make people feel mentally healthy, then perhaps that they're more physically safe to themselves, but also just feel more safe in terms of the relationship and the community that we've developed. And so, like Collin said, maybe that's reaching out, asking someone questions, being involved and caring.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that really caring about the members in your community is a great way to keep the community safe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it all really comes down to mutual respect. That's kind of my biggest policy on life, is just mutual respect between all people. That's just my
Yeah. And well, going off that tone of mental health, this week is Mental Health Awareness Month, week in the United States. And I think it's really important. An aspect of community safety is the community providing support with people who are suffering from mental illnesses.
Yeah.
I think for me, that's really kind of embodies how I see a community providing a safe environment for the members of that community, is being proactive to the dangers that afflict community members, whether that be through legislation or through programming or screenings for depression or other mental illnesses, or just normalizing that, it's okay to be suffering from these things. It's okay to come to someone to, get help, whether it be for a mental illness or, an issue that you're having within your neighborhood or community.
For sure.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. But I wanted to, posit a question to you about that is, why do you think so many people find a boundary into doing that? Like, I've always been curious about that. It's like it's something that seems, relatively sensical. Caring for people in your community, making sure that they are at the apex of their own health. So, what provides those boundaries that cause people not to do so?
Are you saying specifically in terms of mental health?
Honestly, just in terms of general involvement in things that would prioritize community health.
Well, I think I'm curious first, maybe more specifically on mental health.
Yeah,
why is the conversation seem to be, it's okay to get help? Why is that not already normalized?
Yeah, I think that, it's interesting because when you're physically unhealthy, whether that's an injury or whether that's a sickness or anything like that, it is normalized to get help for that,
right.
And when it is something that is unseeable almost, and in many cases it's not unseeable.
Right.
However, in a case where it is unseeable, maybe people don't want to, expose to their community that they are struggling with. And there's a lot of, I think this has to do with the perception, societal perception that we put out that everyone should be happy. I think this has a lot to do with social media. This has a lot to do with the way we define happiness and prioritize it in society. And it's not only happiness, it's a general state of positivity and all this stuff.
Yeah.
There's really no room. People put no room in there for fluctuations in mental state or in mood.
Do you think that is due to portrayals in media or advertisements about life?
For sure.
Yeah. I definitely think it has a lot to do with what it's what we're influenced by.
Yeah. As in media.
Yeah. I mean, that's the like major influence on our lives in this. As you know, we're all 2021 in this room.
Mm-hmm.
It's been the most massive influence on our lives that like it's unparalleled to things in the past.
Yeah. Well, I do want to jump back to this point. I think it's going to be a great conversation to have. But I do want to jump back into some Prince and enjoy some of our musical guests tonight. We're going to be taking a listen to a Prince track called My Love Is Forever. And this is off of his 1978 album, For You. Hope you guys enjoy this track. And we are back here at the Community Garden, and Prince just hit us with a track off of his 1978 album, For You. This track was called My Love Is Forever. Now, this episode of the Community Garden has definitely been based in conversation, and we love it. And over that song break, we kind of decided that we wanted to come back in this segment and give 3 good takeaways from the segment that we just had before. And I'll kick us off by saying that it's so important to make everyone in our communities feel safe, and it's important for us to be mindful of how that can vary from person to person, and for us to be understanding and willing to learn on how we can serve the needs of others.
Absolutely. Takeaway from me is that I noticed myself and all of us kind of stuttering through our words a little bit in that previous section of conversation, and I think that is evidence that this is a difficult conversation to have. But although it is a difficult conversation to have, it is an important conversation to have. It is important for us to be transparent and communicative with our communities in ways that we can make each other feel safe, and also communicative and open to the communication when one of us does not feel safe.
And my little takeaway was that, if you guys are out there looking for a way to get involved, this is just us having a casual conversation about these things where we understand the importance and the value of them, but it's still a casual conversation. It's not intimidating, and that's one of the best ways to really get involved. Just sit down, talk things through, and see how you feel about them.
I think a casual conversation among peers, among friends, can be more impactful to the people in that conversation than, say, at times, a program or something put on to discuss the same topics. So don't, like Collin was saying, don't shy away from learning from these conversations.
Absolutely.
There's activity in it. There's agency.
Yeah.
Requires your own head.
Well, right before we left for the break, we talked a little bit about how we are all so impacted by media. And I couldn't agree more. Like Collin was saying, it seems to be unparalleled in our lives. But also, I suppose that depends on your definition of media,
and also what media you consume.
All right. Well, let me break it down to a specific example then.
Yeah.
One big piece of media that has been in our culture lately is this film Joker. And if you haven't seen the film, you've definitely heard about it through the channels of social media. A large response to this film in many different ways. I guess we can start with the violence portrayed in the film has been talked about as, media does have this grip over us. Glorifying or portraying this violence in a positive light is detrimental to the safety of our society, and this is how some people feel. Collin, how do you feel about that?
When it comes to displays of violence in media, it's kind of crazy how much America in particular gets away with. I spent last semester in Liverpool in the United Kingdom, and I was shocked. On television there was almost no violence. There were more intense themes and things like that, but the violence was not as emphasized, and the fact that passes so often in American society, I do think has a negative effect. But at the same time, I think in representative pieces of film and other things, I think it can be used properly. I'm still a little torn on the Joker situation. Even after seeing the movie, I was still a little, it was a little grotesque.
Yeah. I think that violence portrayed in media, I don't know. I think that, well, in terms of movies, I don't watch many movies, but I think that it's important to understand the audience of the film. Because in a film with an adult audience, obviously you can't control who watches the film, but it might be more acceptable in that realm. But in a movie that is based on a series that is based on a comic book that is for child consumption, that's a problem.
But here's the thing. Are you saying that something should be based upon what it was originally written for?
No, that's a good point. But
it has the opportunity to evolve.
It's difficult, right? I understand the side of wanting to be honest with the subject matter, but I also understand the social responsibility, especially a blockbuster film as big as The Joker has in portraying violence and how it's seen in our community.
For sure.
So something I'm a little curious about was, like, in that movie, did you see anything, did you feel that the violence was more extreme than the Heath Ledger iteration?
Oh, I think the violence was definitely more extreme than that iteration.
He slams a pencil, or
Yeah,
slams
this-
the guy's
yeah,
head
yeah,
into
yeah,
a pencil and kills him.
I will say that while the concepts might not have been more extreme, the demonstration of the violence was definitely more
Explicit.
explicit.
Yeah.
And there were scenes in this past film where I physically could not watch. And at this level of gore, I don't know. I'm not sure what kind of place that has in our society.
This is true. And I am also thinking about a movie that I did just watch called Midsummer, which is the most violent movie I have ever seen. But I think that this goes back to the question of who our audience is, because this is a designated horror film, and
Midsummer?
Midsummer.
Yeah.
Okay. I have not seen the film.
One of the A24 classics.
Oh yes, one of the A24 classics for sure. But also, what I was going to say was that, oh come on, Dylan, we just had it. What I was going to say about Joker was that this is not only a portrayal of physical violence, but there's also, and I think that the Heath Ledger iteration, as you said, definitely played on this a lot, and I know it was highlighted in this film, is that this is a portrayal, and maybe a romantic portrayal of mental illness.
Yes.
And I think that is a problem.
I think one of the most important scenes in that movie. Oh, granted, I guess I don't really want to spoil anything. Is this spoiler alert type
Spoiler
business?
alert,
Spoiler
everyone.
alert. Fleck is seeing the social worker for the longest time throughout the film. They're constantly discussing what's going on with this case, and then eventually she just says, yeah, our funding's been cut. And to think of that situation, it's a small scene in the film, but it stands for something a lot larger. Like, that society has essentially failed him. He is someone who does not have, the availability to afford privatized healthcare. And he's turning to a social worker for medication, for things of that nature. And out of nowhere, out of the blue, it's all gone. And it's because his society can't provide for him anymore.
I think that this is a good point, and to bring it back to our previous conversation of safety and safety as health, and having access to things that make us healthy is paramount. It's super important.
Very, very
and
important.
that our community should be able to provide that for members of our community.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess on the flip side of that coin, can a filmmaker or a person who creates media use positive themes in their film to change the mind of the audience to be positive? For example, after I watched The Joker, my mind felt very dark and I felt icky inside. But does the positive opposite of that have the same effect? Can we leave a film or leave from an advertisement or who knows, a radio show like the Community Garden feeling uplifted, feeling like we want to enact change in the community?
Certainly. I feel like certainly.
Oh, yeah. I mean, once again, it depends on the audience a bit, and it also depends on what you're willing to look into for yourself. You have to have that individual desire to actually, think about those things, because they're often, media gives you so many options, and you don't have to pick the good ones.
Yeah, definitely. And another part of this whole conversation that we have not discussed yet is that this is art. And can you put a box on that? I don't think so.
No.
However, this is mass consumed. And
Yeah.
I think that, like you said earlier, Matt, maybe the directors and producers of the film maybe should have a little bit of responsibility to understand that this film will be watched aggressively and plentifully, and that they should probably okay, so what I'm trying to say is they have a platform, and they can do whatever they want with that, and they chose to do this.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, did you see some of the precautions that movie theaters were taking for this movie?
No.
Yeah, there was documented things in New York City about people going as having undercover police officers at debut showings of The Joker because they were so concerned about public safety.
Well, it's a sign of the community that we live in, this overarching community we live in the United States, of what the expectations are of how media can influence our behavior. Unfortunately, a violent act wouldn't be unprecedented at a film screening like this.
No, not at all. And I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken, in Colorado a few years ago, there was a violent act in a movie theater for a Batman movie.
Yeah, there was. It was Aurora, right? That was the
Yep. Well, let's continue this,
Yeah.
but let's also get groovy for a sec.
Let's hear a track, man. Let's listen to Prince. Break it up with some
because-
grooviness. No
because
problem.
we need a little groove in this darkness.
Give me the second in command. Give me that Prince.
Yeah, so let's go back to some Prince. This next track we're going to play is a 1987 track by Prince off of his album Sign O' the Times.
Ooh.
And this track is called Housequake. Enjoy.
Shut up already. Damn. Tell me who in this house know about the quake? I mean, really? Really? If you know how to rock, say yeah. Yeah. If you know how to party, say oh yeah. Oh yeah. But if you ain't hip to the rare housequake, shut up already. Damn. Housequake. Everybody jump up and down. Housequake. Oh, there's a brand new groove going round. In your funky town. And the kick drum is the fault. You gotta rock this mother set. We gotta rock this mother set. We gonna show you what to do. You put your foot down on the two. You jump up on the one. Now you're having fun. You're doing the housequake. Hey, question. Does anybody know about the quake? Bullshit. You can't get off until you make the house shake. Now everybody clap your hands. Come on. Let's jam, y'all. Let's jam. Don't wait for your neighbor. Grenades and ham. Doing the housequake. There's a brand new groove going round in your city, in your town. Housequake, and the kick drum is the phone. Housequake. Housequake, you gotta rock this mother. Housequake. Housequake, you gotta rock this mother down. Come on. Housequake. Housequake. Now that you got it, let's do the twist. A little bit harder than they did in 66. A little bit faster than they did in 67. A twist, little sister, and go to heaven. Come on, y'all, we got to jam. Before the police come, a groove is funky. It's on the run. Hey, shake your body till your neighbors stare at you. Housequake. Everybody jump up and down. Housequake. There's a brand new groove that's going around. Housequake. In the city, in this funky town. Housequake. And the saxophone is the fault. Check it out. If you can't rock steady, shut up already. Damn, you got to get off. You know what I'm talking about? On the one, y'all say, housequake. Top of your body, let me hear you shout. Say, housequake. My lord. Housequake. My lord. Housequake. Bullshit. Louder, say it. Housequake. Shakalaka. What was that? Aftershock. Everybody, you gotta rock, come on. We gonna shake, we gonna quake, 'cause we got the best groove that we could make. We on it too, y'all. The drummer gonna tap, we gonna sing it and rock this mother to the max. And that's a fact.
Shut up already. Damn.
And you guys just listened to Housequake, a track by Prince off of his 1987 album, Sign O' the Times.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're here with a beautiful segment of the week, Dylan, Tree and Path of the Week.
Tree and Path of the Week. My favorite time of the week. And this is a very exciting week on campus, not only for the dynamic and mercurial trees we have on campus all over, but this particular nook that I found on campus today, right in between St. Mary's Hall and Dorchester Hall, right next to Campus Drive, down the middle, across from Cole Fieldhouse. If you're walking across the street on the sidewalk and you see St. Mary's Hall, you take a right, and right in there is a beautiful nook of grass and a nice little brick wall, and in the brick wall is a bench. It's literally built into the brick, just a little place for your tushy. And I literally laid down and rolled around in this grass today because, one, it's almost untouched grass. It's fluffy, it's great, but also it's quiet. St. Mary's blocks you from the noise of Campus Drive, and also this brick wall blocks you from the path that goes behind McKeldin, and it's just a little nook. It's quiet, it's beautiful, and in this nook is a 56-foot tall willow oak, Quercus fellows. And this is a phenomenal tree. In fact, this tree is completely green.
Oh, nice.
That's amazing.
Completely green. And I'm excited to see the evolution of this tree in the next few weeks because it seems like there's just a lot of potential energy, and it's ready to go.
Yeah, can't wait to see that potential energy convert.
Yeah, so get to this nook. This is the nook of the week.
Yeah, Dylan, you're going to have to take me there, man. I want to experience this nook with you, friend.
Oh, yeah.
Tom Nook.
Beautiful.
Call me Tom Nook.
Well, speaking about evolution, we kind of were we were kind of speaking during the musical break about how we can take this conversation and turn it into actionable items.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, like I said before, the first place you should start is with conversation. You just gotta be able to see yourself involved in this first. Reading something on a paper doesn't necessarily always cause the involvement that we assume that it does. Looking towards a script isn't the best way to learn about things sometimes. And eventually, if you feel invested in this topic, just go and research it. Do some research, do some basic readings, see how things feel. And if you feel the need to take the next step, and if you want to take the next step, look for places you can volunteer with.
Yeah,
look
absolutely.
at places where you can take direct action. I think a lot of people are also intimidated by this because they assume things have to be at like a national level. That like if I'm getting involved with something, then it's going to have to affect this major issue that affects everyone. By affecting everyone, it affects your own community.
For sure.
Thus, working for your own community helps you solve that problem.
Yeah, scales of change.
Yeah,
like
man. Yeah.
we can affect a lot of change in our small scale communities, and that is okay, and that is positive.
Yeah.
For students who are busy with studying English or having a bunch of internships, but who still want to make this change, like we were talking about, having these discussions and these conversations to normalize topics that have been seen as taboo or have been seen as, should be shrouded in secrecy. Having these conversations amongst your friend and normalizing it is the first step towards that change, and all of us can do it.
Absolutely. And I would like to make a comment about and kind of kick everyone in the butt a little bit, because I do see a lot of apathy on campus and in many of my communities towards getting involved in the things that will make our community more positive and a more safe place. And I think that if you do see yourself in an issue, or if you are indirectly or directly affected by an issue, do something about it.
Yeah.
And like we said, it can be a conversation, but have the conversation.
Yeah.
Like, get your friends together and talk about it, if not something more. So I think that we should all be be putting energy into making our communities as safe as can be, as positive as can be, as mutually beneficial as can be. Let's just make this place a better place.
Yeah.
Well put. Well, on that note, Collin, I wanted to pose a question to you that we've kind of been asking all of our guests here on the Garden.
What's that?
On these smaller scale communities, what would you say is probably, your best circle of community?
At the university?
Or just in your life, your best circle, and what you get from that community that you find so valuable?
So, I mean, not to be cliche, but my best friends from home, honestly. I grew up in a rural area. I didn't really have much exposure to a lot of national issues or anything like that. And honestly, I was like pretty closed off to the arts and culture and what was going on in my local community at home. And these guys and everyone involved just like really helped me think about that and had conversations with me that I was previously uncomfortable having. And even though it's not like they're pushing me over the limit, they are pushing me to my limits, and even when they don't mean to do so. And so yeah, I think something like that.
That's what's up.
Yeah, it's great to have friends that push you out of your comfort zone a little bit and allow you to grow and learn. Like you were talking about last week, Dylan, this is the point of the community, to learn and better yourself as a community member.
Yeah,
that's for sure. And that's that.
That is that. And we are going to end the conversation there tonight, but we don't want you guys to end the conversation there tonight. Be sure to take that back into your community, back into your friend groups, and maybe talk about these issues that you guys haven't previously talked about before, or reinforce some of the points that you guys have all kind of agreed upon.
Absolutely.
And we want to thank you guys one more time for listening to the Community Garden, and we want to thank Collin Danz for being here.
Thanks to you guys.
And exploring all of these very complex topics with us. We also want to thank Bryce Watson, man, for giving us that incredible Prince intro and sitting along this whole time, man. Thank you.
I've been chilling here this whole time.
Yeah, it's been a gracious
I
presence.
about this stuff too, but I wasn't the guest, so I'm just gonna shut my mouth this week.
Well, go out and see a Bruce Take Nap show, and you can see Bryce Watson talking up there on the mic, man, and playing them instruments. Well, speak about playing instruments, man, we want to thank Prince one last time for providing the soundtrack to an incredible night of conversation.
Yeah.
And we are going to come back with Prince for one more track.
Yeah, this final track for everyone is called Call My Name. This is off of a 2004 Prince album called Musicology. That is good night from us, everyone. Matt and Dylan here at the Community Garden. Thank you, Collin Danz.
Thank you, guys.
Prince. Thank you, Bryce. And good night, everyone. You can catch us here next Tuesday and every Tuesday after that until the end of the semester at 10 p.m. Have a fantastic Tuesday night. Have a fantastic Wednesday. And have a fantastic week.
Heck yeah. Bye-bye.
All right, let's
Bye,
listen
guys.
to some Prince.
Call my name. Call my name. Heard your voice this morning, calling out my name. It had been so long since I've heard it that it didn't really sound quite the same, no. But it let me know that my name had never really been spoken before. Before the day I carried you through the bridal path door. And ever since the day I haven't wanted anyone but you. And anybody who really knows me knows the truth, that I just can't stop writing songs about you. I love you so much. I just can't wait to get my arms around you and feel your touch. Hey, if I don't see you real soon, baby girl, I might go insane. I know it's only been 3 hours, but the war. If they had a love as sweet as you, they'd forget what they were fighting for. What's the matter with the world today? Land of the free, somebody lied. They can plug my phone and people round my home. They only see you and me making love inside. Just can't stop writing songs about you. I love you so much. Love. Just can't wait to get my arms around you. Get my arms, feel your touch. Yeah. If I don't see you real soon, baby girl, I ain't go insane. Go crazy. I know it's only been 3 hours, but I love it when you call my name. Never seen the moon look so lovely as the night I saw it with you. Let me know I'd never seen the moon before. Never seen the moon before. So many speak of the moon as though it had no flaws, but to compare it to a beauty like yours would give one pause. Nothing about you is false. That's why your love is real. That's why your love is real. God forbid, if you belong to another, I'd have to steal. Take you from your I might be tempted to break the law around here, because